Welcome back to the channel, and in this video we're going to take a look at creating this part using AutoCAD 2D drafting. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, so super quick and simple. Let's go ahead and make sure that we have our ortho mode turned on, and then I'm going to go ahead and check the O snaps. So these are going to be my running O snaps, and I'll go ahead and turn the grid off as well. Okay, so I'm going to create this by starting off with the top view, and then I'll create the other views, right? So I'll refer back and forth to the drawing just so you can kind of see what I'm doing. But here at the top, I need two numbers that I'm going to use to define this. So hopefully you can see that I do have a rectangle that's going around here. So I'm going to start off by creating a rectangle with two numbers, right? So these two numbers are going to be the ones that I'm going to use. The height is located here, but we're not quite worried about that yet. But what I can do on here is I can go ahead and create all of these other lines and some of the distances on these other lines, like for example, this line here. That distance is sitting at 10, so I see that number here. And then I also have this line here that is sitting at 10, right? So I can create that from this number that is located here. And then I have a couple other numbers. I'm trying to figure out how long or how far this line is. And then this one I'm going to refer to this one here in the front. So just by kind of looking at this, I know I have to do 3 offsets of 10. And I also have the width of these shapes here. So this length here, as well as this length here, is going to also be 10. Okay, so once I create that first rectangle that's going around here, I have a bunch of numbers that's going to set up as 10. Okay, and then once I do that, you can almost see that the top view will automatically be created for us. We do have the length here that we can go across and create. And we also have the two numbers that I need to specify the center of this circle. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start off with the rectangle command. So I'll use a rectangle, I'll click here, and remember those two numbers that I need is going to be 100, 60. Alright, so once we have those two numbers defined, next I can start offsetting some of these lines. The way that I'm going to do that is if I use the regular offset command, it's going to offset the entire rectangle. I don't want that to happen, so I have to do one or two steps. First step is I would have to explode this, right? So I can take this rectangle and then I can explode it. Or I can choose option B, which is use an offset command inside of the construction line. So underneath the draw menu, and I'll choose construction line. One of the options here is going to be offset. So I'll choose offset, type in my distance, which is going to be 10. Follow that with enter. And then I'll select this line here, going to the inside. One more going this direction. Go ahead and get this one here in the front. Go that direction. I have one line going up and this one going down. Okay. And then the other thing that I'm going to need is going to be a offset of 40 going this direction, right? So I can use regular offset now. So remember that this is not a polyline. So I'll go back to offset, type in the number of 40. And then I'm going to offset this line here going forward. All right, everything else that I need to do is just simply doing some trimming. So I'll go ahead and use the EX trim command. And then I'm going to select my rectangle here, and then I'll click to the outside of it. And just like magic, give it a couple of seconds and it should trim all of that excess stuff away. Now let's start trimming this out to make our shape. So I'll go to the trim command. And then I'm just going to trim these lines here. Well, I actually need that line, so I trimmed the wrong line. Do not escape out of the command. Just simply hit the undo here in the command. And then I meant to trim these two lines forward. Okay. Next thing I need to do is I need to trim in between here. So I'll do that. And then I'll trim this line going back to here. Alright, so that's going to be all the lines that I need to basically set up almost everything that I need in the top view. Let's go ahead and locate this circle here. So we have two ways of doing this, right? One way is using the from option here in AutoCAD, and the second way is going to be using the UCS. Whichever way that you decide to use is going to be strictly okay. I'll show you the kind of longer way, and then I'll show you the UCS way. All right. So the longer way of doing this is going with the circle command, center diameter. Then I have to select the point of where I want to start this from, right? So I'm going to use circle, center diameter, shift and right click and tell it I want to go from a point. Once I select from, you can see here on the on the command line, it's asking me specify a base point. I'll select this endpoint here. And now I have to tell it to go from this endpoint to some other locations. So I have to physically type in the @ symbol. So once I type in the @ symbol, I'm going to the left. So the x-axis is first. That's going to be a -35. And then I'm going up in the y direction, right? So that's going to be a positive. So remember that I'm at this point. I'm going this direction and up this direction. The y-axis should be a +25. So let's do a comma 25. So you can see that the offset is a -35 to the left and 25 going up. Go ahead and hit enter. And now I can go ahead and define how big my circle should be. And I just look like I made a mistake there, and I'll show you what I did here in a second. But the diameter of this one is going to be 30. And I see the mistake that I made. I actually made this 60 when according to the drawing that should have been 50. But no biggie, I'll just stretch that down. So let's go ahead and use the stretch command. I'll do a left click here, and then I'll come across and then do one left click here, hit enter, pick a base point here, come straight down, and type in 10. Okay, so that'll solve that problem for us. And it looks like we do have some other problems going on here. And the second problem that I did is that I offsetted this line, or these two lines here, from the wrong location. But I'll go back to the to the PDF drawing here, and I'll show you exactly what I've done. But I'm gonna go ahead and correct these first. I'll go ahead and go to stretch, and just like I did before, I'm just gonna stretch right across here. So one single click above it to here. Go ahead and hit enter, pick a base point, which is located here. Come back this direction and type in 10. So you can see here in the drawing is that I took this line here and I offsetted it 40, when in reality I should have offset this line here going 40, because if we refer down to here, it's showing that this edge here is going to be 40 going this direction as opposed to this edge. And the first one that I made was just a simple typo. I typed in 60 instead of 50. But those are now corrected, and it's kind of good sometimes to go back and look at some things and know how to correct it without actually restarting your drawing. Okay, so continuing on, what I'm going to do next is that I'm going to go ahead and delete this circle, and then I'll show you the other option to do, right? So let's go ahead and delete this circle here. I'm going to move the UCS by selecting the UCS. Go ahead and select the square here, and then I can place that on this endpoint. The same rules are going to apply, except I don't have to go through so many steps. I'll choose circle center diameter. Now I need to give it where it needs to go. So it's going to go a -35, 25, hit enter, and then it's ready for me to type in the diameter, and we have a diameter of 30, right? So I can go ahead and put that other circle right on the inside of that, and I'm just going to hit the enter button on my keyboard here. That's going to take me back to the last command I used. I'm going to go ahead and type in where I need it to go, and it's going to be 35, 25. I'm sorry, that's going to be a negative value. Let's go ahead and enter again. -35, 25. And then go ahead and type in the diameter of that circle. Now remember, since I hit the enter button, it's going to default to a radius. So this is where you have to pay attention to your command line. I'll go ahead and select the diameter here, and then I'll type in 24. All right, so now the top view is automatically completed. Well, I shouldn't say automatically, it's done for us. And now we need to go ahead and start constructing the bottom. I'll go ahead and move my UCS back, and the way that we do that is we'll select this drop down here, and then I'll go ahead and select WCS for the world coordinate system, and it'll drop it back to the original 0, 0 location. All right, now I want to start working on this front view, and the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to start by bringing in all of my points down here in line with this. So I'll use a construction line. I'm going to make it vertical. And then I'm just going to click these endpoints, right? So I'm just clicking these endpoints along these points. Now, as far as my circle goes, you can see that if I zoom in a little bit, that is hitting that right at the tangency, and you can do some math and stuff to figure that out. So there's no need for me to go ahead and put a vertical line there. I'll simply put one on the other side of it, right? So I'm going to put a line going at that location. Let's go ahead and escape out of that. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to draw a line that goes right across here. And then I'm going to offset this line going down the height of my drawing here. So I'll go to offset, type in the distance, which is 45, go ahead and hit enter, select that line, and then bring it down. Okay, now I have to define a few other lines here. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm thinking I'm going to use kind of some trick math here, and just to show you. So let me go ahead and explain what I'm going to do first. All right, so I want you to keep in mind that I do have a line that's going right across here at the top. And excuse me if my line winds up going a little crooked. But what I need to do now is that I need to make a few other lines of multiples of lines, right? I need to make a line that goes at this surface here. I need a line at this surface here. And since I'm drawing lines, I do have one more surface that is sitting right here. Okay? Now, the math of this is going to be simpler for some of these lines. I know that the distance from this line going straight down to this line here, that is simply put as the 45 minus the 10, right? So you can see these two numbers here. So 45 minus the 10, this number here should be 35. And I know this is going to look a little bit messed up, but I'm going to try my best to make a good looking 5 here. Okay. So I have that distance down. The distance going to this line here is given to us almost, right? So we have a distance of 25, and that'll get me to this surface. But I need to get to this surface. Well, if I refer to this right side view, it says that it's 5 going from this face going up. So the 25 minus the 5, that distance should be set to 20, right? So we're looking at this drawing here. And that distance here should be set to 20. All right, so one other line that I need to define is that from here, right down to that surface. Well, the good news about that is that we have that number and it's located here. So now the reason I showed you all this is because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this line and I'm just going to go copy. I'm going to copy this line from a base point. And then I'm going to type in a distance of 20, then 25, and then 35, and I'll get all of those lines. So remember those numbers. We have 20, 25, and 35. Okay, so going back to the copy function, I'll use copy, select this line here. Go ahead and hit enter. Pick a base point here and come straight down, and then remember the numbers that I told you. So I have 20, enter, 25, enter, and then 35, enter, then hit escape. So now that I have all of my surfaces here that I need, now I can start kind of trimming some of this stuff out and start creating my drawing. So I'm going to start off with the EX trim, just like I did before. And I'm going to start by selecting this top line here, and then click above it. Hit the enter button on your keyboard, select this bottom line here, click below it. Hit the enter button again, select this left line here, come to the left, hit enter again, select this line here, and go to the right. Okay, so now all of these are going to be the surfaces that I need. Now I can start trimming out some of these lines, and then it'll start developing my shape for me. So let's go to the trim command, and then we're going to start working here to the far left, and then we're going to work at the far right, and then we're going to kind of work ourselves to the inside. So I'm going to start off by trimming this one all the way down to this surface. I'm going to do the exact same thing here on the other side. So I'm going to trim this down to that surface. All right. Then this next one here, this line actually goes all the way up. So I can trim here. I can go ahead and get rid of these two lines as I don't need them. And I'm just going to work myself back into here. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim this line going up because I know that this surface goes up that way. This long line here in the middle, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it, right? So I'm just going to trim this line here back to these two locations. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of this one as well while we're here. All right, the next thing that happens is that this comes up, it goes this way, and then it folds in and goes this way to this line here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by trimming this, and then I'm going to come to this end and I'm going to trim this direction, right? Okay, so now we have this surface going here. I'm going to work here at the top here, and I'm going to trim this going all the way back to where it stops there. So I'm just going to trim this line here, this one, and then finally that one. And you can almost see our shape taking form here, right? So we have it stopped here. We know that we're going to have a line that goes from here straight down to here. This is that top surface of these two circles. So I'll go ahead and trim here to here and to here. Let's go ahead and just finish trimming this up. Go to here and here. And then finally we'll trim at this point. On this back side, I don't need this line, but I do need it for right now. So I'm going to keep it there because I do need to draw a diagonal line going there, and I don't have that end point. I'm going to go ahead and trim this here. Okay. Go ahead and escape. Now the last thing I need to do is go ahead and create some lines here. So I'm just going to go to the line command. Go from that intersection to that endpoint. Go ahead and escape. Back to the line command. I'm going to do a line from this endpoint to that endpoint. And then do the exact same thing on the other side. So I'm just going to draw a line from this intersection or endpoint to that endpoint. Okay. So now we have all of those shapes created. Let's go ahead and get rid of those lines. And I can use the trim command. This is one of the neat things I do like about the trim command is that it has a built-in erase with it. So I can go to trim. I can get rid of these two lines here. I can get rid of this line now that I don't need it. And then I can get rid of these two lines. Okay. Let's go ahead and escape out of this. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come here and we're going to do the fillet command to clean this up. Now we have a little radius that's located here, and it has a radius of 2. So I'll go to fillet, radius, go ahead and put it in as 2. Now what I like to do here is use the multiple function, although I have 1, but this is just going to keep the command open for me. And the reason why is that I want to continue and I want to do this all in this one command. So I'll go to fillet. I got my radius set. I selected multiple. I'm going to do a fillet between this line here and then this line. Okay, now the command is still open, but I need to change my radius. So I'm going to come down to the word radius. I'm going to set it equal to 0, enter. And then what I'm going to do is one big fillet here is with this line here and then this line. Okay, so I just took it back to where those two are going to stay open. So that's one of the useful things about using the multiple when you're creating these. So I don't have to break out of the command or anything. I can keep right on going. All right, we can escape out of the command. And now we can take a look, and you can see now that the front view is created. We just need to create the right side view now. The way that I can do that is I can use a miter line, and that basically will help keep everything in line, and then I can make sure that these are going in the right direction. Or I can just simply go ahead and create it without using a miter line. And in this case, I've had some other videos where I created or used a miter line. In this one, I'm not. I'm just going to go ahead and create this other shape. Now, one of the things I have to do is make sure that this is in line with this one. So I'm just going to start a line command, and I'm going to go straight across. And I actually should have used a construction line. I think I'll go back and do that. So let's go ahead and delete that line. And let's go and use a construction line that's horizontal. And I'm just going to kind of zoom into here. And what I'm going to do is start selecting some lines here. So I want this line here, that endpoint here, this endpoint, this one, and then this one at the top. All right, let's escape out of this. Let's draw a vertical line here. And now we're going to do some of that offsetting magic or copying magic. And let's go back to the drawing and explain. All right, so once again, I do have this line that's created here. And I also have this line here at the bottom. Now keep in mind that all of these other lines here that are going across are the points where I selected for those construction lines, right? So I don't have to worry about any of these horizontal lines as they are already created that is going across. So I got those all from the locations that were located on this drawing. What I need to do is figure out where these vertical lines at. So remember that the total distance across here is 50. So I do know how long this top line needs to be. That's going to be 50. The first one, I do know the length of where this one will be. It's going to be simply 10, right? So I have my first line going at 10, and then I'm going to copy another line, which happens to be at this location. So just imagine that you're pulling everything from this one line here on the left side, right? So I have the first number is going to copy at 10. This number here, if the total length of this is 50 and I minus this 10, to get to that point, it should be 40. Okay? And then the last distance that I need to get all the way over to this line here, it will be 50. All right. So I'm going to copy this line, and then I'm going to type in the numbers of 10, 40, and 50. Okay, so I do have my vertical line here. Let's go to the copy command, select this line, enter, pick a base point, which is going to be here. As long as I'm going this direction, and make sure that you have your ortho turned on, I'll type in those numbers. So I'm going to have 10, enter, 40, enter, and then 50, enter, and go ahead and hit escape after that. All right, so those are going to be my vertical lines. Let's go ahead and kind of bundle this up in a nice, neat package. I'll go ahead and use the EX-trim command again. Go ahead and hit enter. I'm going to start with this line here. So I'm going to click that line, click to the left of it, hit the enter button on your keyboard, click this line here, click to the right, enter. This top line, click above it, go ahead and hit one more enter, click this line here, and then go below it. All right, so now I have to just kind of trim this to make it look like what I need it to look like. Zoom into it, use the trim command, and then we're going to see what we need to trim. So I'm going to trim these two parts, and then I'm going to trim these two parts, right? This part is going to be that circle at the top, so all I have to do is trim from here and here. And then what I need to do now is go ahead and put my radius on both sides of this. All right, so I'm going to escape out of here. And then I have to go and use I'm trying to think of what's the easiest way of doing that. Better yet, let's go back to the trim command and get rid of right in between here. And I'll show you why I did that here as we do this. So let's go to the fillet command. Go ahead and set my radius equal to 2. Enter. And then I can use the multiple option. Remember that anytime you use the fillet command, you're going to select the two lines that you want to keep, or the size that you want to keep, or the two lines that you want to make that radius with. So I'll select here and that line, likewise over here and here. Let's go ahead and escape out of here. And then what I'm going to do is simply select that line here and this line, and underneath the modify option, I'm going to use join. So once I do that, it's going to select those two lines and bring them back together and create them as one. All right, so now we have all three of our views created. We have our front, right, and top view. So those are going to be the views that I'm going to need to create the isometric. I will give you a caution here, is that when you're creating a 2D isometric, doing it the manual way, one of the hardest things to do is to put these radii onto your isometric drawing. So what I tend to do, and remember that isometrics are nothing more than a picture, I'm going to go ahead and leave it off as if it's not on there. Typically that's going to either be something that's welded or something along that line. But remember that isometrics is nothing more than just giving it a pretty picture. All right, so let's start working on the isometric. Now hopefully this should kind of go real nice and smooth for us. First thing we need to do is go ahead and select this icon here to set up our ISO draft. I'm going to kind of zoom in here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my cursor here until it says isometric left. I'm going to start off by using the line command. I'll click here. I'm going to go this direction. And once again, make sure your ortho is on. I'm going to type in 10. I'm going to go down a distance of 10. I'm going to come down this direction, 10. Sorry, not 10. Let me undo that. That number here should be 100. Then I'll go up 10. I'll go back here to the left 10. And then I have to figure out what this height is between here, right? So the overall height is at 45. And if I subtract 35 from it, so this height here actually is sitting at 10. So I'll type in 10 here. And then let's jump over to the drawing to do a little bit more math. Okay, so that first number I figured out was this number here, which was 10. And all I did was I took the 45, I subtracted 25 from it, and we subtracted 10 from it. And that should have left us with an overall height of 10. Now I need to figure out how far is this line here that I'm currently drawing. So remember that the overall length of this is going to be 100. We have a number here, which is going to be 10, 40, and 10, right? So as I take the 100 and I subtract these numbers away from it, and these numbers added together is 60. So 100 minus 60, that tells me that the length of that line better be 40, right? So hopefully that was kind of clear to you of how you're seeing that. And remember that this line here is set to 10. So we need that height, and it's going to be 40. Okay, so we're going this direction. Number will be 40. And now to complete this next part here, I'm just going to go up a height of 25. I'm going to go back this direction, 40. And then I'm going to come straight down, and it should intersect with this line, so I can simply go C and close it. All right, so now I have almost everything I need to create, this isometric view, right? Let's go ahead and do a little bit more stuff to it. Let's go ahead and draw a line from these two endpoints. So I have a line going to there, and likewise here on the back side. Let's go ahead and get rid of these extra lines that are going across here. And then I'm going to start copying some of this, right? So let's go ahead and use the copy. And I'm going to take that line here, these here, as well as these here. Go ahead and hit enter. I actually just recognized something. I noticed that my lines were not turning blue, so it might be hard to follow it. So I'm going to escape out of this, and then I'm going to go ahead and fix my my graphics performance here. Give me 1 second. Okay. So I tried to fix it, and it looks like I'll have to restart my computer. So I'll just go ahead and keep finishing this one. And I'll try to pre-select them so you know exactly what I'm looking at. So the lines that I'm going to copy is going to be these lines here. Right? And so those are going to be the lines that we should be able to see. I'll go ahead and choose copy. And now I have to pick a base point. I'll click here. And then I have to go ahead and change my UCS here, or my selection window here. So I'm going to switch over to isometric right. And as long as I'm aiming this direction, I'll type in the number 50. Okay, let's escape out of here. I'll go ahead and draw a line from this endpoint going straight across to here. And then I'm going to select this line here, choose copy, go to this endpoint, and then I'm just going to place these lines at all of these endpoints. Just like so. All right. Next, we need to go ahead and start working on this portion here. So I'm just going to go ahead and select this line here. Choose the copy command. Click a base point here. Come this direction. That's going to go 10. Likewise here. So I'll go to copy this. Pick a base point out here, come this direction, 10. And then I got one more copy that I need to do. So I'm going to go to copy, I'll select here, and then I have to change my plane here. So I'll go to ISO left, pick a base point, still selecting objects, hit enter, and I want to come this way, a distance of 10. Okay. Next I have to kind of, do this angle line here. And the way that I'm going to do that is just by drawing a line from this endpoint going to that endpoint. Go to copy, choose this line you just created, enter, go from that endpoint to this intersection, and escape out of that. Over on this side, I need to copy this line, so I can select it, go to copy from this endpoint to here. All right, and then we just kind of put a couple of more things here, and then we can kind of straighten out most of this in the back. So I'm just going to grab this line here and copy it as well again from this endpoint going to that endpoint. All right, let's draw a line from this endpoint going straight across here. And then let's start getting rid of some of this stuff so we can clean it up. All right, so let's go to trim. I'm going to start by working this line here, so I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that altogether. I'm going to start with this line here, and I'm going to get rid of this. This line here is not going to be needed. And then we're going to work toward these lines here. And this here at the top. All right. We can get rid of this line here as well. Let's go ahead and escape out of this. And then I'm going to take this line here, copy it from this endpoint, and place it at this endpoint. Escape out of that, and then copy that part. Okay, and then let's go ahead and trim off this extra part on here. So go to trim, and we'll get rid of it to here. All right, so now we almost have it completed. We just need to go ahead and locate our circle that is sitting here. So let's go ahead and switch to the isometric top. And then we'll take one more look here at the drawing and see how we can kind of position that just by using a little math. Okay, so on this one, the math is really not too complicated, right? We know that we have a surface, and it's probably easy to draw it on this one, is that we have at this midpoint here is where the center of this circle is. And the reason I know that is because this number here is half of our 50, right? So that tells me by default at this midpoint, I can create a line. Now I just need to know how far to go back to define the center of my circle here. Remember that I have to just go ahead and subtract off whatever the distance is between here and here from this number. Well, it gives me the distance here at the bottom here, which is 10. So this line going back here has to be 25, right? So all I'm doing is just going to draw a line from this endpoint going straight back at 25. I mean midpoint. Okay? Okay, so I am in my isometric top, and once again, I can just select here and I'm at isometric top. Let's go ahead and hit the line command. Click on this midpoint. Come this direction. Give it the distance, which is going to be 25. Escape. Now remember that anytime we're creating these circles, it has to be the ellipse, and we cannot use the ellipse command here because isocircle does not appear in this list. We have to physically type this in, so I'll start off with EL, enter. And then my isocircle option is selected here, so isocircle. I'll go ahead and click this endpoint here. Go ahead and give myself a preview of it. Come down and select diameter, and then give it the diameter, which is 30. I'll do that exact same step again, so EL, enter. Instead of going down to the command line, you can also just type in I, enter. Select this endpoint. Give yourself a preview of it. Instead of going down to the command line, it's easier just to type D, enter. And then the diameter of this one is going to be 24. Let's switch out of isometric top here and go to isometric left. I'm going to select these two circles, choose copy. Pick a base point here, and then I'll go up a distance of 5. All right, let's go ahead and get rid of that line here. And let's go ahead and draw some lines here right at these quadrants, because these are going to be the vanishing edges. So I'll draw a line at that quadrant, going to that one, and do the exact same thing on the other side here. So I'm just going to draw a line from that quadrant to that quadrant. All right. Now we need to go ahead and trim off some of this stuff, right? We got a lot of things in here happening. Let's go to trim, and I'm going to first start off with this circle here. So I'll go ahead and trim off this portion here, between here and here. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to work and trim off this portion here, and I'm just going to walk it back around. Same thing on the other side here. And then we need to look right in this area here. We need to get rid of these. So wherever they're crossing, they do get eliminated or deleted or trimmed. All right, so that's going to be all that we need to do to create the isometric on this one. Once again, I'm not going to be able to put that fillet part going around it. But if you follow me and you see me do that in the 3D drawing, you will actually see that curvature that will appear, right? Just going to kind of give it one quick look over, and I think we have everything we needed on this. Yes. Okay. And sometimes you can trim this line out here, or you can leave it. I prefer to leave it just because it's an actual change of a slope going down. But on the isometric of the drawing, I think it was removed. But either way, that's going to be fine. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our whole entire drawing. So I'll go ahead and use the zoom extents here. Next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to go ahead and get out of the isometric drafting by selecting this button here. And then we can start off now creating a title block to go around this. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to start with a rectangle. I'm going to have to determine what size paper that I'm going to use, and I'll use an A size. So my first point is going to be at 0, 0, enter. And an A size dimensions are 11, 8.5. Zoom in to that rectangle you just created. Use the offset command. Give it a distance of 0.25. And let's go ahead and offset this to the inside. Let's go ahead and hit escape. Next, I need to turn this into a block. So I'm just going to select both of those rectangles. Hit the create button. When this dialog box come open, I'm just going to call it title. The base point is already going to be selected because I already put it at 0, 0. I already selected the objects that I need. If you had this in any other units, you would go ahead and select it here. But I just assume and leave everything at inches because we are creating this using inches, right? Although I haven't explicitly said that, but I'm just going to leave it as inches. Go ahead and hit OK. All right, so now I can go ahead and kind of adjust and figure out my scale factor. So I have these two selected, or actually in this case it's just one block. I'll do a right click and come down to properties. It should bring open your property window. You can see where it says scale X, scale Y, and scale Z. This is going to be what I need to adjust this to in order for it to fit on the title block, and also define whatever my scale factor is. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it that it's going to be a scale factor of 30. Now I only have to put those in scale X, scale Y. Scale Z we don't need because that's coming right at you, and this is not going to be anything three-dimensional. So the scale Z is obsolete. All right, let's go ahead and escape out of this. I'm just going to move all of this stuff around, so I'll use a window. Go ahead and move it. Let's go ahead and turn our ortho turned off here, and then we can kind of move it around a little bit more freely. That looks good to me. Isometrics, remember this is nothing more than a pretty picture. So what I usually like to do is I'll highlight it, go ahead and scale it, click a base point, tell it 0.75. Then I'll come back and move this into position. Okay, so now that I have this done, we're ready to start setting up some of the stuff. So, or some of our stuff that's built off of the scale factors. Now remember that here in model space, there's two different ways how you can do a title block. One is going to be standard and the other one will be annotation. Now my last video where I created something in 2D, I used the annotation scale. This one, I think I'll be a little different and use a manual scale, right? So the first thing that you're going to do if you're using a manual scale is you're going to type in LTS, hit enter. And then you're going to type in whatever that scale factor of your drawing is. Remember, that's going to be the scale of what you blew up your title block to. And in our case, it's going to be 30. All the LT scale does is that it automatically adjusts your line type. And that's what that stands for, is line type scale. Next, let's go ahead and create some quick layers here. And I'm looking at the drawing and I know we don't have any hidden layers. So this is going to be kind of a little obsolete here. But just to make a couple of quick layers, I can make the center layer. So I'll go to the layer properties. Let's go ahead and move this over a little bit. I'll select this icon here, and I'm just going to create a couple of layers. First one is going to be HID, H-I-D. Go ahead and hit enter afterwards. Go ahead and select this icon again. And I'm just going to type in CEN just for center. Go ahead and hit enter. All right. The center layer, I'm just going to make cyan. So I'm going to select this color palette here. I'm going to pick color number 4. Hit OK. And then with the hidden one, I'm going to select that palette in front. I'll make that color number 1. Let's go ahead and escape out of this. Underneath these two, the next thing I need to do is go ahead and change the line type. So the hidden one is highlighted. I'm going to select the word continuous here. Go to load. Scroll down till I find hidden. And the one that I'm going to choose is going to be the hidden 2x. I'm sorry, the 0.5x. So the hidden 2. Go ahead and hit OK, and then select it here, hit OK. Likewise on the center one, I'll select here. I'm going to choose load. Scroll down to center 2, hit OK. Select the center 2, hit OK. And now my 2 layers are created. All right, let's go ahead and close this. Let's go ahead and set up our center marks, right? So the first thing I usually do is type in center layer. Go ahead and hit enter. And then I'm going to set that to equal to the center layer, right? So CEN and hit enter. Then I'll go ahead and adjust my center EXE. And that's just going to be the extensions on my center lines. And I'll go ahead and make it 3. All right. So now at this point, I'm ready to put my center marks and center lines on it. Let's jump to the annotation. Go to the center mark tab here. And then I'm just going to select this outside circle, and it should put my plus on it. Let's zoom in down to here. Next, I want to go ahead and put a center line here. So I'm going to go to the center line. I'll select this line here. And then I'll select this little bitty line here, and it's going to put it right in the middle. Let's escape out of this. I'm going to select this line here. And then I'm going to select this square, and I'll place it right here where it perpendiculars here. I'll grab this square and bring it down to where it intersects a perpendicular to here. Next, when I select this line here, I'm going to come to my properties window. I'm going to adjust this number to, let's see what 0.5 will do. And it looks like 0.5 is a little too small. Let's see what 0.25. Okay. And 0.25 does give it that line in between. Let's go ahead and select this. Go and copy it. Right at this midpoint and place it at this midpoint here. Escape out of that command. All right, so now we have all of our center marks and center lines and things of that nature drawn. If I wanted to create one more layer for my dimensions, I can do that, and I think that'd probably be a good idea. So I'm just going to go to the layer properties. Remember, whichever layer that you got highlighted, it will copy that. So I have the 0 layer highlighted. I'm expecting when I hit new layer, that layer to be white. So I'll go ahead and select here. And it is white. Let's just call this a dimension layer. I'll click the color palette, and let's go ahead and make that color something that we can see. Magenta should be fine. Hit OK. And then we're going to close this. Now I did that so when I set up my dimensions, they'll all come on that layer. Let's go back to the Annotate tab. Underneath my dimension block here, it says Use Current. Select the drop down here. Tell it that we want our dimensions to be on the dimension layer. Next thing I need to do is go ahead and set up my dimension styles. So here, I'm going to find this little drop down that's located here. Or I can type in D-Enter. Once I select that, you should get a dialog box appear. Remember that we're using the standard method, right? So I'll go to Modify. And the way that I like to do this, I always work from the right to the left. So I'm going to start off with the Primary Units tab. And then I'm just going to put a check mark here and suppress these trailing zeros. So this means that it will give me nothing but nice whole numbers. Underneath the Fit tab here, I have to adjust this to be the exact same size as my scale factor. So that's what that's going to be. Underneath the text, I'll adjust the text height make it 0.125. Underneath the symbols and arrows, I'll change that to none. Then hit OK. Make sure that it got the preview of a standard, and standard is my current. Go ahead and hit close. Alright, so the last thing I need to do is just do nothing more than put the dimensions on, and dimensioning is really simple, right? So linear dimension, I'll click that endpoint here to this endpoint. Go ahead and place that dimension above it. Go ahead and kind of keep doing that. I can just hit the enter button if it's going to be more linear dimensions, and I think I'll kind of go through that a little quickly here. So you're going to see me kind of put these dimensions on in rapid fire here. One of the other things that you want to do is that if you know that, or you think that your dimensions are going to not fit in between on these lines here, make sure the last point that you click on is what side that you want that dimension to kick out to. So if I go to linear and I click this endpoint first, click this endpoint second, I'm expecting when I come here to the right that it kick it above it, and then that's exactly what it did. Alright, let's go ahead and put a few more dimensions on there. So I'm just going to use all of these linear dimensions, and I'll go ahead and place all of my dimensions on. And once again, I'll do this kind of in a rapid fire way. All I'm doing is just clicking endpoints. Let's see, we have a dimension here. We'll go ahead and place a dimension here. Let's go ahead and place a dimension showing this distance. We do have our 25 dimension that's located here. Let's move it a little bit ahead of it. And I'm purposely leaving off of my radial and diametric dimensions because I'll do those here in a second. So I'm just kind of rapid firing and knocking out all of my linear dimensions first. Alright, that was the last of those. Next thing we need to do is we'll go ahead and do all of our diameter dimensions. So I'll click here. I'll place one here, hit the enter button, and I'll do the other one here. And then lastly, I do have a radius that is sitting here, so I'll go ahead and change to a radius dimension. And select that here. And then I'll click it here. Remember to get rid of this extension. Escape, select this dimension, come over to the properties window, and you're going to see where it says extension line. Go ahead and turn that off. Escape out of that. Let's go ahead and give it a quick look over. I'll just hit the zoom extents. And everything on this one should be good to go. Alright, so hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please like, share. Keep coming back for more videos. The next time you see me create a video after this one will be me doing this in AutoCAD 3D. So if that's something that you want to see, go ahead and look out for my next video. But until then, I'll see you then. Have a good one.